Hi guys, Nomis here. Welcome back to Nomishavn for episode number 29. Today I'll be building a second station for the funicular, with an old planned neighborhood in Swiss architecture, with tons of shops and eateries, and some more expansion above that with a mix of classic Nomishavn wooden houses and some more modern apartment buildings. To explain why there is an area with very distinct Swiss architecture, we need to go into the history of the funicular. The funicular was built by a Swiss man born in Bern, Luca Huber, hence why this funicular is today called the Huber line. Luca Huber inherited a railroad company from his father. As a child, Luca had been taken to Nomishavn several times while his father was there in business, and fell in love with the city, which led to him moving there in his 20s after finishing his education. In 1890, right before Luca turned 30, his father died and he inherited the railroad company from him. As Nomishavn was a quickly growing city with a lot of rail being built, Luca saw an opportunity to get in on the action with his inherited railroad company. Inspired by a funicular system in his hometown of Bern, he had an idea to get one built in Nomishavn. On the hilltop in Bjorgvin, which I started building on in the last episode, there is an old observatory, which I will get to building in another episode. This had become a big attraction for the city, and an easier way to get up there would be really attractive. Luca proposed the idea to the city and got permission to build the funicular. While the lower part of the hillside, which I built last time, was largely developed already, the rest of the hillside below the observatory was quite barren still. When building the funicular railway, Luca also bought a plot of land around where the second station would be built. Here he built a whole planned neighborhood, complete with houses inspired by the architecture in his hometown of Bern in Switzerland. With the completion of both the development and the opening of the funicular line, back then just called the Bjorgvin funicular, in 1895, this quickly became a very popular place to live among young people from all around Europe, settling down in Nomishavn. There were also a lot of restaurants, bars, outdoor markets, and small local shops spawning up on the first floors of houses here, making it a very bustling place. Today a lot of the local shops have been replaced by international brand stores, but many of the small shops still remain. The neighborhood continues to be a popular place for young professionals who often start families while living here, which explains the two elementary schools here, which will come later. In the 1940s, Nomishavn made an effort to nationalize their public transport. The funicular was bought by the city-state, and to honor Luca Huber, it was renamed the Huber line, a name it still holds today. The funicular really was built as a way to reach an attraction, but nowadays the funicular itself and the neighborhood that was built with it has become a tourist attraction in its own right. Anyways, that is the history behind this place. What you saw me doing in the start of the video was just building the station with a lot of procedural objects, like I did in the last episode with the first station. On this one using some half-timbered houses, as I felt they blended well with the Swiss architecture. Also placing a lot of these houses from Bern. We'll be back to explain a little here or there on the detailing when we get to that. Mostly just sped up footage with music in the background. See you a bit later. Just want to go into how I use Bob to detail these buildings, which saved me a lot of time and prop count. Because I haven't used these houses anywhere else, I don't need to worry about how they look elsewhere and can just set up a very detailed look. What I do is I go into the random setup when you open Bob, and this is actually a very powerful setting. So let's say I want to have a lot of pubs on the first floors of these houses. I set up a template where I add every single pub logo I've got, place it correctly when adding it to Bob, and then you get this row of houses where there's tons of variety of pub logos. This is something I do with a lot of different props, like store signs, both the older classical ones and with the newer brands. For all the buildings I will also add in things like planters, benches and small tables. And I make a random template with sitting sim props to place on the benches and tables. I think this really makes the streets feel so much more alive, and it saves me the time of placing them manually elsewhere. Something I also add a lot of on these burn houses are different types of wall ivies. This does take a lot of time, but I just love the result, and it gives them a very recognizable look. Apart from this, the main detailing for the area is just putting these old market stalls and sidewalk cafes absolutely everywhere, giving it that very crammed in and busy look. For the more open area next to the road, I decided to decorate it up with some fountains, which I then just surround with more outdoor seating. Something I love to do is make narrow side streets here and there look a little more rough. I think it adds a sense of realism. There's a lot of street trash props and bottles lying around, and some graffiti on the empty walls. Not the nicest street, but it certainly adds to the overall look. As I normally do for these schoolyard areas, I put down some tiles that are different from the area around. And since it's elementary schools, I put down some playground props, as well as some football goals, plants and benches. had this awkward space near the school and thought it would be a nice spot to add some parking, as it is very much at the edge of the neighborhood. People here probably won't drive much, but I like to have this one dedicated area at the edge for parking. The last thing I'll add in this neighborhood is of course some murals. When you have empty walls on buildings, it's such a good use of the space to just elevate that look. And I mentioned the Nomishavn of the day has a strong arts and culture scene, having been this melting pot of Europeans for centuries. So I will continue to use this as a decoration where I can find the space. Further up, I'm adding in this neighborhood which isn't super new, but it would have developed a little later, something that is reflected in the architecture. It also isn't planned, but has organically grown over the years, probably motivated a lot by the funicular, giving them a connection down to the center of Bjorgvin. This is shown through the mix of classic wooden houses and more modern small apartment blocks. I imagine this neighborhood has continually developed during the 1900s, so not very old like many parts of Bjorgvin, but also not very modern. Doing hillsides like this, I found a nice way to do it is first place roads and buildings, then do the bigger details, detailing that will hide the rough terrain, so things like retaining walls, stairs and ploppable surfaces. When this is all down and the ugly terrain can't be seen anymore, I can add in all the smaller details. You might notice I do a lot more switchback roads here. One reason for this is that it makes sense to have a little lower density at this end of the hillside. And while cars weren't a big thing yet when most of it was developed, I imagine traffic with horses was important, and a way to get more manageable slopes was important. So at this part of the hillside, the stairs are more of a shortcut for pedestrians, rather than the main way it is connected, which we would have seen further down.
Just waiting for you. Just waiting for you. Just waiting for you.
quite a bit of empty space behind the houses on top of the retaining walls, and I found dotting in small parking spots here and there is not only good for gameplay, but also a nice detailing touch. I used a road here which has no space for street parking, so I imagine there would be a small part of the apartments up here that had private parking spaces behind the house. I'll also add in some basket courts and a small football pitch, as well as the normal details like benches, planters, tables and bike parking. So that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed building it. Likes, comments and subscribes would be greatly appreciated and help me grow the channel. I do have a Patreon as well if you want to support me further. Hopefully next week I'll get to the top of the hillside and build what lies there, as well as the last station on the funicular line. Have a great rest of your day and stay tuned for some cinematics.